Hello guys, I just want to take you through the Audi MMI DUAL infotainment system. There's quite a few videos on YouTube already, but I just want to cover some points that I felt is interesting, and so there are some tips and tricks and hidden screens that I want to take you through. So stay buckled up and say hi to my steering wheel lock. It's quite dangerous in London. So first of all, this is a screen that you get. I mean, some of the options here might be a little bit different for you, mainly because I've changed them around based on ease of use for me. So I'll take you through all of that. You've got total of 8 apps on page 1, and there's 2 pages. You can see there's a second one here, page 2. By the way, this screen is a fingerprint magnet, so if in my video if you do see a lot of fingerprints as we go along, apologies for that. I did try to give it a quick clean before I shot this video. 8 apps per page, and there's 2 screens. If you're on a triple up, this is a 3rd screen here. We'll start off. You have the standard options in terms of radio, media, telephone, car. You can sort the order yourself in terms of where you want them. So in my view here, you can see that the car is at the top and the navigation is at the bottom. That's because I'm driving on the right hand side, it's easier for me to sort of touch these things. So you can just move them around by just click and hold it, and then you see that UI changes, and when it highlights, it drops into the place and they switch. So I can pretty much do that with anything and everything. That the phone apps here replaces the car phone. You can do the same for the side shortcuts as well. So you see the navigations at the top, I can click, hold, move it, and you can hear the little clicks, and then when you hear the little clicks, you can move them. So this is how I typically like it. I like my navigation and music to be the most closest from the driving steering wheel, and then I've got my phone and home. So if you hit done, you're done with that. So that's how you edit the shortcut. And then what you can do is also you move some of these things into the dual screen. So for example, you can add a lot of shortcuts. So I'll come on to that. So if you click on radio, I'm listening to LBC at the moment. If you hold on to that, you'd get quite a few options in here in terms of skipping and the list and all of that. But you can see a star here. If you click the star, you favorite that radio station, and you can favorite quite a few, and I'll show you where to get the favorite. If you click on more here, it brings up the options for store as a shortcut. So when I clicked on that, that's what it is here. So what we can do is we can quickly go to a list, and then let's go and say click this, and then store as a shortcut. This has been stored. So I've got 2 pages in here. I can move it to this side, and then you can see, and you can also click and hold there and then move it all the way back, and then have them in there like that. So that would be one way of sorting out your the shortcuts for the radio. And then within radio, if you click on sources, you can see all the different sources, and this is where you can access your favorite. I don't know why this keeps coming out of the mute, but you can see this is how you got all the favorites. If you click on the settings within radio, this is where you turn off the traffic announcement. So if you have traffic announcements that keeps coming up where every 15 minutes is telling you how bad the traffic is, that's how you turn it off. You can also have the DAB announcements and service, and there's quite a few options in here in terms of what you want to do with the radio. What I want to share with you is the cockpit section. So that this is the virtual cockpit. So anyone that's got virtual cockpit, you've got a digital display in here that brings up the map, that brings up quite a few stuff. So let's go through some of these things. So you can access that by going into settings and then going into display and brightness, and in here you can dimmer or brighten the cockpit. So you can see that in here, you see I'm on the brighter settings, and I can dim it. I don't know how good it picks this up, but I'm just going to leave it in the middle. Then obviously you've got the virtual cockpit settings. This is where you can bring in additional setting on top of that here. So for example, I sometimes like seeing my distance traveled every time in a journey. So if I click on that, you can see it's brought up the distance travel. You can do average speed, you can do consumption display, you can do this, you can do pretty much everything. You can also have date. Not sure why you want to see the date all the time, but you can also click no display to have more real estate within the display. Okay, and then if you go back, you've also got the MMI settings in here, and the MMI setting is basically for these two screens in here, where you can go brighter or back. One thing that not many people know is the touch feedback. So if you do think that your MMI is not as responsive as my one, that's because I've turned off the haptic feedback. The feedback is basically when you touch them, you get a little vibration. So if I turn it on and I put the vibration to high, then anytime I want to do something, I have to click and hold till I hear the vibration. So for example, if I'm moving, if I'm selecting something, I'll have to click and hold. So I normally turn this off. So make sure you turn that off. Then you've got the screen cleaning. If you want to screen clean, you just turn that on so none of the buttons would get pressed. So that's fine. I mean, I just cleaned it without pressing that, so that should all be okay. Then let's come on to the maps, because maps quite interesting. So you can access the map by two ways. One, you go to the home screen and you got the navigation here, or you can click on the navigation there. It doesn't really matter. It takes you to the settings. So obviously the settings for everything is in here. So within the map setting, you can click on here to find out, to say, do you want the traffic information? This is only available if you buy it new and you got the 3 years of service. Otherwise, this is pretty useless. I've come to find out the hardest way possible after 3 years. But you've got all of your orientation and then the map content. So if you go into the map content, this is how you can see whether you want the map to display everything. As you can see, I've turned everything off, so my map looks a lot more cleaner. It doesn't have any of the logos and stuff like that. But if you do want to have the logos, you can tick all of it and then go back, and then all of a sudden, if you go in here, you can see all of the logos are back. Within the map itself, you can also do a personal route assist. So what this does is, if you turn the personal route assist on, it brings up, it looks at the last 24 hours worth of data and brings up personal suggestions in terms of where you want to drive. So if you're always going to the same place over and over again, it brings up suggestions in this bar here. So you can just click there. It gives you 3 suggestions and then you can go from there. But if you don't want that, turn that off. The other thing I wanted to share with you guys was the within the settings, you've got the general settings where you can control the date, time, measurement. So if you're ever going over to the other side of Europe, you can change from miles to kilometers, and that will change the display from there. You can do that with the speed, you can do that with the temperature, you can do that with the MPG. So if you do that with the MPG, you can see that in here. So if I go and change it to gallons, that should all change it back to gallons. Let's not do that. So you control all of that in here, and then you've got quite a few options, which is self-explanatory. This option is to sort of remind you if you left your phone in there, if it's wirelessly charging. When you leave, it gives you a little ding. So that's all a nice feature to have. And then within the settings, you also have the system maintenance options, which is where you do the map updates and stuff like that. My system stopped receiving map updates. So as you may have noticed, I don't have the new UI with the three parallel views on the home screen, but everything else is pretty much the same. Then if you jump onto the car settings, this is where you get to control a lot of the cars. So for example, the Audi Drive Select helps you to configure your driving style. So I think it typically, if you leave it at auto, it's fine. The car will determine where you're driving and how fast you're driving and change settings based off that. But I prefer individual. So if you click and hold on this little pad, it brings up the style. So I'd like to keep my driving style as dynamic and steering as comfortable, because the comfortable gives you a very smooth steering. I recommend everyone to do that. If you don't worry about that, just leave it on balance. But this is where you can change that. And then if you come back in here, you've also got the efficiency assist. This is where you can turn off the intelligent coasting, the accelerator feedback. You may notice as you're approaching a roundabout really fast or an intersection, you get like a green logo on this side and your pedal vibrates. That's how you turn that off. And then also you got economy tips, turn that off. I don't think you'd ever drive this car in view to sort of saving petrol. You just know how to drive that. And then you hit back. So that's very interesting in here, because that setting is quite hidden. It took me quite a long time to search it. Then within seats, you can toggle this function off to make sure that the seat doesn't keep moving forward and backwards every time you switch off the car and get off. And then climate control, I'll come on to the climate control, because a lot of the climate control can be controlled here. Then within the lights, use this option to turn off the rain sensor. Otherwise, the exterior lighting, you can have the automatic lightings. When do they activate? So again, you can say, do you want to activate late or do you want to activate early? I've left it as medium because it's fine. And then you got the entry and exit lights. This is where you switch off the exterior lighting. And then also background lighting. This increases and decreases the density of the lights inside your internals by your doors and stuff like that. Okay. Then we've obviously got the driver assist. With the driver assist, what this basically does is it does if someone jumps into the car, it stops, it applies the brake, or if it thinks you're going to crash into somebody, it applies the brake. I've got an individual, so you can go to the maximum or basic. So I've again got the individual where I've turned everything on, but you can go to the basic. For example, the basic doesn't have all of it on, so you got the Presense. I want to make sure that it's got the Presense, which just stops the car when someone jumps in. There's a distance warning if I'm on the motorway quite a lot, and then it also tells me to take a rest, which is quite good. I think have all of that on because that will really help. And as a bonus, you also can navigate. You can also use this button to trigger that all the time, and that would help. And then also when you're in that setting, just like you see here, the settings option here can allow you to change your speed warning. So you can set this at like 100, and if you go over any of this, it will give you a ping. And then also Presense in terms of how advanced you want this. If let's say if you leave it early, every time someone comes in front of the car, it gives you a warning there's somebody in front of the car. It applies a brake. As you can see, I've turned that feature off, but I can also leave it late so the car picks it up. So those are the hidden warnings in there. And then the lane departure warning, that is this annoying thing in here that doesn't let you change lanes or vibrates till you indicate. You can turn that vibration off. So that's how you turn it off. And then that basically means the vibration is off. But you see the dual system has this. So if you click on that, that thing goes away. So this is how you double up. This is why it's really important when you have the dual system, that you can also turn that off over there, or you can just still leave that to see the lane guidance, but turn off the vibration. Okay, that's very important. Then the next thing I wanted to show you is quite a nice feature that I really use, which is again inside the car settings. If you come into the settings and service, you've got a steering wheel button. That is this button here. This is quite helpful because what this button does is it helps me to switch between radio and media. So sometimes I like to listen to the radio, sometimes I like to listen to the song. So I just press this button and it changes that. But obviously you can change that to anything. You can change a map from day to night mode. You can change it to the radio for the traffic messages, traffic announcements, or you can initiate Siri if you want to, which I don't, but this is how you do that. And then you also have quite a few options in terms of the central locking. If you want to sort of fold the mirrors, this is where the option is in the central locking. If you use long press to open windows, then you can use a key fob to long press to open the windows and close the windows. And then you've got the car information. If you have your tire system, if you just refilled the air on your tire, press that and then store the pressure type, and that what will do is it will store that. I have a video of me doing that. I will share that in this video. And also these are quite self-explanatory, but you got the wiper change position. If you ever want to change a wiper or clean the wiper, press that and see what happens. So I just press that and it brings a wiper that allows you to clean the wiper, and then if you do that, and the wiper should go back if you turn it off. So that is super cool. All right, then you've obviously got the parking aid. The parking aid is fairly straightforward. This just lets you know how much of the volume you want in the car in terms of alerts, and how much it should fade the volume if you're listening to the music. The other thing also, the servicing, that's quite good. If you go into the servicing, you can see when the car is due for the next service and oil inspection. Fine, there's just loads of things in here, but it can be a little bit distracting. It can be too bright. So if you want to turn these things off, you can do in a number of ways. One, you've got the off button in here that turns off the top display. Okay, that also turns off quite a few stuff in this, because you see it will turn off. You've got the map, but it only turns this off. So let's turn it off on here. But then this on button here, if you hold it, it's going to turn off. wait a minute, it's turned my radio on. So if I turn this off, I hold it, it turned off the MMI. So I basically now can't action many things. I only got the fuel and the alerts. I need to change the brake pads, by the way. Yeah, and that's how you turn that off and just basically focus on the road. But why would you turn that off? You just turn all of this back on again. So the only screen you can't turn off is this one, because this is helps you to control the heating and helps you to control a few other things in the car. So that makes me come on to this second screen on its own, because the second screen here, obviously it's got the shortcuts. You can get rid of the shortcuts by clicking on this button, and it gives you a bigger view of the aircon system. You've got the start stop here, so if you don't like the start stop, whether if the car is stopping all the time, press that. You see there's a red light in there when it does get selected, and then that means it's turned the system off. Turn it on, and that's the off button, and that's to turn off the lane departure. This is your heating. So heating, you can slide your finger up or down. This also comes up in here. This is how the dual system works in combination, and then you can do that. But if you ever want to sync it up, you can use 2 fingers and bring them together. You see that sync is on. Now you've got the option to do all of them together. If you want to sync it off, you can do that to sync it off and then control it. Obviously press this fan to increase the intensity. Again, you can scroll up and down. You can change it to auto. These are self-explanatory. But if you click on these 3 buttons here, it brings up the functions. It tells you whether you want to sync it off, or you can turn it off. So now I turned it off. But if you click on the settings in here, it says that you've got an automatic supplementary heater, which not many people know about. But if you ever wondered why the heater is always coming on and it's quite hot, this is where the setting is. So if you want to turn it off, this is where you turn it off. But I'd like quite warm. It's like still warm in my car, so I am going to leave that on. The other thing I wanted to show you is basically some of the buttons in here. So like I showed you before, you can select within the car menu, you can select your drive style in here. You can also select using that, so you can go up and down, and that is a quick way without getting distracted to select your options. And then this is to turn off the skidding. What's this, ESC on or off? We all know what that is. But if you press this one, look at this one, it turns on the back camera. So this camera is automatically initiated when you go on the reverse gear. But if you ever want to know what's happening behind you, just press this. Okay, now once you're in here, you can click on this little 3 buttons to then tell you whether you want to activate it automatically, the volume. But here's this thing, clean reversing camera. So click on that and then watch the magic. It's just going to spray some water to the back. Well, this is failed because I probably don't have anything, but I've got a video on my channel showing you this, but this does definitely work. I haven't filled it, so boo for the experiment. Then obviously you've got the CarPlay within the car. That's fairly straightforward. I haven't connected it. I'm recording it with my phone. So those are the main things I wanted to take you guys through. There's quite a lot in here, but if you ever get stuck, you can obviously use the help function, the setup wizard and stuff like that, which I think might confuse you, might not confuse you. But if you're still here, do give me a like, do follow the channel. If you are still here, I want to also take you through this section, because there are some settings that you can do in here. Obviously you can use this button to move left or right, so I actually need to change my brake pads. This view button brings it up bigger and smaller, right? And then also this is your volume. I've got it on mute at the moment. I don't want to change anything. And then this button in here, if you press it, it does take you through the list view, and then move it around in terms of where do you want the favorites to be. So that within the favorites you can move them. It's fairly straightforward. So yeah, there you go. This is the list view, but you can also, this also gives you a list view. So that is in any way, if you're on contacts, you get the list view there. If you're on the maps and all of that, so that is a list view. And then in here, you've obviously answered the call. The reason why I said why I don't use Siri for this is because I've got the Siri button in here, and then this is obviously the zoom in, zoom out. But you've also got the mute if you do press it, and then you got the skip buttons in here. You've got in here, you can also do the speed limiting and stuff like that. If anyone's ever interested, let me know if you want to know how that works. I can show you all of that. This is the wiper control for rain, and this little button in here, it resets quite a lot of stuff. Anyway, that is the end of the video. If you did like it, let me know. I'll try to number all of this to in 1 to 3 order of what I've taken it. There are a few other things that I've not taken, which I think is fairly straight self-explanatory. I apologize if I have shown you some of the things that are self-explanatory as well, but you know, it just helps the flow. But you know, subscribe, stay tuned for more videos like that. Till we speak again, take care, bye bye.